There's something most people are completely unaware of. When someone walks away from your life, there's one fatal mistake that can ensure they never come back. This mistake is not born from logic, wisdom, or clarity. It comes from fear, desperation, and a deep misunderstanding of the unconscious forces that govern human behavior. Carl Jung, the great Swiss psychiatrist, taught us something profound, that nothing in our relationships happens by accident. Every experience we have with another person is a mirror reflecting our inner world. So when someone distances themselves from you, the real question isn't, why are they pulling away? But rather, what is this situation revealing about me? The first truth you need to embrace is this: distance itself is not the real problem. It's just a surface symptom of something deeper. Jung introduced us to the concept of projection, the idea that what we perceive in others is often a hidden or suppressed aspect of ourselves. So when someone pulls away and your immediate reaction is to chase after them, send messages, demand answers, or try to hold on, you're not just reacting to the situation. You're projecting. You're showing your fear of abandonment, your craving for validation, your deep-rooted insecurity. Ironically, those desperate attempts to bring someone closer tend to push them even further away. Imagine someone needs space to process their own emotions, but you, in a panic, smother them with attention, questions, and emotional pressure. What do you think happens? Instead of drawing them back in, they retreat even more. The unconscious mind interprets this pressure as a threat, and according to Jung, the soul doesn't respond well to threats. It seeks freedom, expansion, and authenticity. Any attempt to force a connection that is naturally dissolving is experienced by the other person as an invasion, as a violation of their emotional space. The natural response? Escape. But this doesn't mean all is lost. In fact, quite the opposite. What looks like an ending can actually be the beginning of something far more powerful, an invitation to grow, to evolve. Jung spoke of the process of individuation, the journey each of us must take to become who we truly are, independent of others' expectations. So when someone steps out of your life, instead of trying to drag them back, it's time to turn inward, to ask yourself, what part of me have I abandoned? Have I been losing myself in this relationship? Have I neglected my own desires, my own needs? This is where one of the most essential concepts in Jungian psychology comes into play: the shadow. The shadow represents the parts of ourselves we've repressed, ignored, or denied because we were too afraid or ashamed to face them. In relationships, it's common for us to project this shadow onto the other person. We look to them to complete us, to heal us, to fill the emptiness we feel inside. And when they leave, it feels like something inside us breaks. But the truth is, the pain we feel isn't caused by their absence. It's caused by the disconnection we have with ourselves. The real issue is not how far the other person has gone, but how far you've drifted from your own essence. And the only way to shift this dynamic is to shift your focus. Stop asking, how can I get them to come back? And instead ask, how can I return to myself? Because when you begin to heal the bond you have with yourself, when you reconnect with your inner truth, when you realign with your soul, something remarkable happens. The other person often feels this change, without you having to say a word, without any pressure or manipulation. They sense the difference. And in many cases, they start to come back. But this part is crucial. You cannot do this inner work as a strategy to win them back. That's not how it works. You can't pretend to be detached in hopes that it will make them return. The unconscious mind is incredibly sensitive. It knows when something isn't authentic. Jung said, "The unconscious never lies." So if you truly want to transform your relationship, you must be willing to transform yourself, even if that transformation means accepting the possibility that the other person may never return. And this is where most people fail. They are terrified of letting go. They believe the emptiness will swallow them. But here's the irony. Only when you fully let go, when you accept the loss and surrender the outcome, do you open the door for something greater to emerge. Emotional independence is not a shallow self-help slogan. It's a deep psychological truth. When you no longer need someone to validate you, when you are no longer clinging to another to feel whole, you become magnetic. Because what truly draws people to us is not our desperation. It's not our neediness. It's our self-possession, our confidence, our authenticity. People are not attracted to those who are trying to fill a void. They are drawn to those who are already full, those who are rooted in themselves, who shine from within, who radiate a sense of wholeness. So, if someone has walked away from your life, don't beg them to return. Don't chase after them in fear. Go within. Sit in the silence. Face the parts of yourself you've long avoided. Heal the wounds you've tried to cover with someone else's presence. And as you do this, you may discover something extraordinary. Not only might the other person feel drawn back into your orbit, but more importantly, you'll realize you no longer need them to feel complete. You've already come home to yourself. Carl Jung once said that the greatest power a person can possess is to be themselves, authentically, without masks, and without the need for external validation. To embody this truth is to walk through life in alignment with your core, and when you do, the world around you begins to shift in ways that are often unexpected, yet deeply transformative. So, if someone has walked away from your life, stop asking yourself how to get them back. Instead, ask yourself, what parts of me have I been ignoring? Have I sacrificed my dreams for the sake of that relationship? Have I abandoned my individuality to maintain something that ultimately disconnected me from my own essence? These questions are difficult, but necessary, because they point you back to the most important relationship you'll ever have, the one with yourself. This is the moment to return to you, to rediscover the parts of your being that you may have hidden, silenced, or forgotten. And when you begin this journey inward, everything around you starts to realign, not just in your relationships, but in every facet of your life. But here's the catch. This transformation requires patience. And that is perhaps the hardest part of all. We live in a world that craves immediacy. We want results now. We want that person to come back today, this very moment. But inner work doesn't operate on demand. Jung reminded us that real transformation doesn't happen overnight. It is a deep, sometimes painful process, one in which you confront your shadow, face your fears, and slowly learn to love yourself in all your complexity, not just the light, but also the darkness within you. And something truly remarkable happens when you go through that process. You stop needing that person to return. You begin to realize that you never really needed them in the first place. And that moment of clarity, of deep inner healing, is when the universe begins to shift in your favor. Not because you're trying to force anything, not because you're attempting to control outcomes, but because your entire frequency has changed. You become whole, complete within yourself. And from that place of wholeness, The people who are truly aligned with your essence start to appear in your life. Maybe the one who left will return. Maybe they won't. But what's certain is that you will be at peace. And peace is what truly matters in the end. When you stop chasing someone who has distanced themselves and instead focus all that energy on your own growth, you begin to uncover a deep universal truth. Real attraction doesn't come from need. It comes from inner abundance. Jung taught us that the collective unconscious plays a powerful role in shaping our relationships, often in ways our conscious mind can't fully grasp. If you're vibrating from a place of emotional scarcity, life will reflect that emptiness back to you. But if you operate from a place of wholeness, from the understanding that you don't need anyone to complete you, then everything begins to change. At first, this idea may feel uncomfortable. You might resist it. You might think about that person constantly, about what could have been, about what you did wrong, about all the what-ifs. But understand this: every obsessive thought is like an anchor that keeps you trapped in the past. Jung believed that the conscious mind presents us with recurring symbols and patterns until we finally resolve them. So what if this distance, this loss, isn't a punishment, but a lesson, a sacred opportunity your psyche needs to evolve? Maybe it's trying to teach you how to let go, how to trust, how to reconnect with your true self before merging with someone else. Because when someone leaves, an energetic imbalance often becomes visible, one that may have been there all along. Perhaps you were giving too much, while the other person gave too little. This imbalance can create a kind of emotional suffocation for the other person, even if they're not consciously aware of it. Jung spoke of the anima and animus, the feminine and masculine energies that live within each of us. In a healthy relationship, these energies dance in harmony. But when a relationship is built on dependency rather than connection, one of these forces can overpower the other, leading to disharmony. That disharmony, if left unchecked, often leads to separation. So if your true intention is to reconnect with someone, understand that the way is not to chase after them. It is to restore balance. That means reclaiming your personal power, not from a place of ego, not out of pride or revenge, but from a deep understanding that no relationship can thrive if one person forgets themselves in the process. As you heal, as you rebuild your emotional strength, your energy begins to shift. And that shift doesn't go unnoticed. People feel it, not in the words you speak, but in the vibration you emit. Think about it. Have you ever seen someone you once overlooked suddenly become captivating? Not because they changed physically, but because they started carrying themselves differently, with more presence, more confidence, more inner peace. That is what happens when you transform your inner world. You move out of a frequency of neediness and into a frequency of magnetism. Jung once said that the unconscious mind perceives subtle dynamics long before our rational mind can make sense of them. This is why, when someone notices that you're no longer the same, that you no longer depend on their presence to feel whole, their perception of you begins to shift. But here's the thing. This only works if it's real. It can't be a performance. It's not about pretending to be indifferent while secretly hoping they'll come back. You have to be truly willing to let go. You have to be genuinely ready to close that chapter, even when you have no guarantees about what the future holds. And that's exactly where most people stumble. They hold on because they're afraid of the silence, afraid of the emptiness, afraid of what it means if the other person never comes back. But what they fail to understand is that only within that emptiness can something new take root. Only in that void can something more aligned with who you really are begin to emerge. Jung taught that the process of individuation, the path of becoming whole, is both one of the most painful and one of the most illuminating journeys we can go through. It forces us to confront the fact that many of the things we thought we needed were just projections, illusions created by our own inner voids. We begin to see that many of the relationships we longed for weren't actually healthy. They were simply distractions, ways to avoid looking inward, to avoid facing ourselves. And once this realization truly sinks in, the desperate need for someone to return simply fades away. That craving, that yearning that once consumed you, dissolves. And it's precisely at that moment, at the very point when you finally let go, that destiny begins to shift in your favor. If someone has chosen to walk away, honor that decision. Don't interfere. Don't try to chase them with desperate messages, with words meant to convince or manipulate. That's not how human psychology works. Instead, shift your focus inward. Reinvest in yourself. Pick up the pieces of yourself you abandoned while prioritizing that relationship. Return to your passions, your projects, your growth. Not because you want them to see you differently, not to prove anything to anyone, but because you deserve it. Because your life should never revolve around someone else's presence or absence. The real secret is that when you do this, when you commit fully to your own healing, your own path, the entire world around you starts to change. People begin to perceive you differently, not because your appearance has changed, but because your energy has shifted. And here's the fascinating part. The person who once walked away may start to feel drawn to you again. Not because you chased them, not because you tried to make them notice, but because the version of you they once knew no longer exists. You've grown, transformed, and your energy speaks louder than words ever could. But here's where it gets even more powerful. When you reach this point, it might not even be you who wants them back anymore. You might discover that by raising your vibration, what once felt essential no longer resonates. You may come to see that the relationship you once fought so hard to revive was actually holding you back. And in that space of freedom, of clarity, you find that true love, healthy, balanced, expansive love, was waiting for you elsewhere all along. Because when you truly let go, something inside you shifts irreversibly. It's no longer a strategy. It's no longer a tactic to bring them back. It becomes a deep transformation in the way you view relationships, and more importantly, in the way you see yourself. Carl Jung taught us that everything we experience in the external world is merely a reflection of our internal world. If your love life has been marked by instability, uncertainty, and a constant need for approval, this is not a coincidence. These are the results of unconscious patterns that you've absorbed over time. Patterns you continue to repeat without even realizing it. The unconscious mind is like a mirror. It shows you precisely what you need to see, even when it's not what you want to see. If you've experienced abandonment or rejection in the past, there's likely a part of you that, without knowing it, fears emotional closeness while simultaneously longing for it with desperation. This inner conflict gets projected onto your relationships. Perhaps you've idealized someone, believing deep down that being close to them might finally fill the emptiness you carry within. But the truth is, no one else can do that for you. Only you can confront your own emotional wounds and find fulfillment from within. If someone walked out of your life, don't rush to see it as a loss. Instead, ask yourself, What opportunity is this situation offering me? Maybe it's a chance to learn how to be okay with yourself without relying on external validation. Maybe it's time to explore hidden corners of your psyche, those parts you've been avoiding. Jung spoke of the process of individuation, the journey of no longer seeking outside what has always existed within. It's a difficult path. It requires confronting pain, loneliness, and uncertainty. But if you dare to walk it, you'll come to a powerful realization. What you were truly searching for in the other person was actually a missing piece of yourself that you had not yet acknowledged or integrated. Often, the fear of letting go stems from a false belief, the idea that if we release something, we'll lose something valuable. But Jung reveals that excessive attachment to someone or something is not love. It's insecurity masked as affection. True love allows for freedom. It does not demand possession or control. So if you're currently struggling with someone's absence or the emotional distance in a relationship, ask yourself, is this truly love or is it fear? Because if it's fear, the best thing you can do is face it, not avoid it by chasing the other person or clinging to a sense of false hope. When you truly begin to heal, something profound happens. You stop viewing others as the solution to your emotional wounds. You no longer seek validation through someone else because you've already found that value within yourself. And what follows this shift is remarkable. You stop chasing and you begin to attract. Not because you're using tactics or psychological tricks, but because your energy has changed. When you no longer need someone to feel whole, the dynamics of your relationships transform entirely. This is where synchronicity enters, a central concept in Jung's work. When you work on yourself authentically, without the agenda of immediate outcomes, meaningful coincidences begin to unfold. Maybe the person you once longed for reappears unexpectedly, or maybe you meet someone new who resonates more deeply with who you are now. The point is this: when your internal world changes, your external reality changes too. But this transformation cannot be faked or rushed. It must arise from a sincere process of self-discovery. If right now you feel incapable of letting go, if the fear of emptiness is overwhelming, allow yourself to feel it. Don't run from it with distractions or by desperately hoping that someone will come back. Jung said, "What you resist persists." So instead, face the pain. Look into what it's trying to teach you. It might show you that you've been seeking outside what only exists within. It might reveal that it's time to stop waiting for someone else to choose you and finally choose yourself. And when you do, when you truly choose yourself, something changes. The world around you starts to reflect that decision, not because you've learned how to manipulate or control others, but because you finally understood that real connection doesn't come from attachment, it comes from authenticity. If someone returns to your life after you've done this deep inner work, it will be because they sense that change in you. And if they don't, it's because they were never aligned with your true self in the first place. Either way, you win. Because in the act of letting go, you've found yourself. When you reach the point where you've genuinely released, something magical happens. You stop feeling the need for that person to return. Not because you stopped loving them or stopped valuing the relationship, but because you now understand that it was never really about them. It was always about you. Jung taught that every relationship is a mirror of our own psyche. The things that hurt us about others are often unresolved parts of ourselves that we haven't yet healed. Once you grasp this, your way of relating to others shifts entirely. You no longer desperately need someone else to fill your emotional voids because you've already learned how to do that on your own. You no longer obsess over someone's return because you understand that if they're truly meant to be in your life, they will be, naturally, effortlessly, and without force. And if they don't come back, it's because their role in your story has been fulfilled. At that point, love is no longer a necessity. It becomes a choice. And when you choose love from a place of wholeness rather than lack, the relationships you attract are completely different. No more codependency. No more fear of abandonment. Just genuine, mutual connections rooted in respect, freedom, and authenticity. Because when you become someone who chooses themselves, you inevitably begin to attract people who are aligned with that same level of consciousness. If the person returns, it will be for the right reasons. Not because you chased them, not because you manipulated them, but because your energy is now different. And if they don't return, it's because the universe has something better in store for you. Not better in a superficial comparative sense, but better in the sense that it aligns with the person you've now become. Carl Jung once said, "What you resist persists, but what you accept transforms you." And within that phrase lies a powerful truth, one that many of us ignore as we move through life, clinging to pain, fear, and a desperate need for control. But what if, instead of resisting the situation you're currently experiencing, you used it as a gateway for growth? What if, instead of trying to escape your pain, you allowed it to teach you something deeper about yourself? Stop for a moment. Reflect. Ask yourself, what part of me is asking to be seen right now? What aspect of me needs love, healing, or attention before I can truly receive the kind of relationship I dream of? Before I can experience peace, stability, or joy? These questions, though simple on the surface, hold more power than any desperate attempt to get someone back into your life. Why? Because when you begin to transform your inner world, your outer world inevitably shifts to match that vibration. Change begins from within, always. And now, I want to ask you something from the heart. If this message has touched something inside you, if it echoed with a quiet truth you've been avoiding, take a moment to sit with it. If you feel like you're on the edge of making a change, but you're still caught in doubt, uncertainty, or fear, I invite you to share. Leave a comment below. Tell me, what part of this message impacted you the most? What is the hardest thing for you to let go of? Your story matters, and by sharing it, you might not only begin your own healing, you might help someone else begin theirs too. Let's create a space here where we can grow together, a place where we can be honest about our wounds and our desires, a community where vulnerability is seen as strength and healing is celebrated. And if you know someone who's trapped in the fear of losing someone else, someone who's clinging to a relationship, a person, or an idea that's slowly breaking them, send them this video. They might not say it out loud, but they could be waiting for a message like this. Sometimes, all it takes is a small spark to ignite an entirely new path. And maybe this is that spark. If you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. Hit the bell so you never miss a message like this again. Because every time you engage with this content, whether by commenting, sharing, or simply watching, you're helping to spread a message of healing, self-awareness, and truth. And the more people this message reaches, the more hearts we can open, and the more lives we can help transform. Remember this, the key has never been about making someone come back. The real key, the one that actually changes your life, is learning how to come back to yourself, to return to your center, to find home within your own heart. And when you finally do that, you'll realize something powerful. You never truly lost anything. In fact, what you gained is priceless. The opportunity to build a life rooted in authenticity, in deep self-love, and in genuine connection. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of this journey. We'll meet again in the next video. And don't forget, the power to transform your life has always been inside of you. Now, it's time to use it.
Taking distance is an act that can completely change your life. We often underestimate the power of stepping back, distancing ourselves from people, places, or even patterns that do not serve us. However, what Carl Jung taught us is that in that space of separation, the deepest truths emerge, those we tend to ignore when we are trapped in routine. When you choose to take distance, you not only change your perspective, but also trigger an internal dialogue with your unconscious. Suddenly, the things that once seemed invisible become clear. Repressed emotions come to light, and you begin to understand what you truly need to live in alignment with yourself. But what happens to the people you distance yourself from? How do they truly feel when you choose yourself? In many cases, the reaction of those around you is a direct reflection of their own shadow. Jung explained that what we project onto others is merely a mirror of what we carry within. So when someone reacts with anger, sadness, or even indifference to your decision to distance yourself, they are actually dealing with their own fears and insecurities. It is not so much that they are hurt by your absence, but rather by what your absence forces them to confront within themselves. On the other hand, this process not only affects those around you, it is also a call for you to explore your own shadows. By stepping away from the familiar, you face the void, that discomfort we often try to avoid. But here lies the key. That void is not something to fear. It is a sacred space where you can rediscover who you truly are, beyond external expectations and conditioning. When you choose to let go, something within you begins to heal. Perhaps it is a relationship that seemed perfect, but was actually draining you emotionally. Or maybe it is a group of people with whom you always felt obligated to fit in, even if it meant betraying parts of yourself. Carl Jung taught us that true freedom does not come from clinging, but from daring to let go. In releasing, you not only free others, but also free yourself. Think about this. Every time you set boundaries, every time you choose to prioritize yourself, you are sending a powerful message to your unconscious. You are saying, I deserve something better. And when your unconscious receives this message, your reality begins to shift. The right people start appearing in your life. Opportunities that once seemed unreachable become possible. And most importantly, you regain that inner peace you may have forgotten existed. This does not mean the journey will be easy. There will be moments of doubt, moments when you question whether you made the right decision. But remember, growth always comes with discomfort. Jung explained it this way. We cannot become who we truly are without first facing our shadows. And many times, those shadows come to the surface when we decide to distance ourselves from what keeps us trapped. When you take distance, people react in different ways. Some will try to blame you, making you feel selfish. Others may attempt to manipulate you into coming back. But here is the truth. Their reactions have nothing to do with you. They are a reflection of their own inability to deal with loss, to accept that your growth might mean the end of their comfort zone. The power of projection. What distance reveals. Carl Jung taught us that projection is one of the unconscious mind's most common mechanisms. What we see in others, both what we admire and what we criticize, is merely a reflection of ourselves. So when you distance yourself from someone, their reactions toward you become an invaluable opportunity to understand which aspects of yourself you have been avoiding. For example, if someone reacts with anger or rejection to your decision to distance yourself, it is possible that they are projecting their own fears of abandonment or feelings of inadequacy onto you. This does not mean you should carry their pain, but it does invite you to reflect. What are you projecting onto them? What part of yourself do you fear recognizing or facing? Distance not only exposes the unconscious dynamics of those around you, but also acts as a mirror for yourself. It is in that space of separation where you can see with greater clarity which relationships were truly nourishing you and which were draining you. Jung firmly believed that our relationships are not mere coincidences. Every person who enters our life does so to teach us something about ourselves, even if that lesson arrives through pain. The emptiness that emerges when we take a step back is not just a void. It is a space for transformation. That emptiness, however, can be frightening. We are so accustomed to filling our lives with constant interactions, with relationships that often serve as distractions from our inner world. But Jung saw the void differently. He viewed it as fertile ground for personal growth. In his own words, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. It is in that emptiness that you have the opportunity to confront your shadows, to integrate those aspects of yourself that you have long suppressed. Perhaps you realize that you have been sacrificing your own desires just to meet the expectations of others. Or maybe you discover that your fear of rejection has led you to cling to relationships that no longer serve you. This process of self-exploration is not comfortable, but it is essential. Every time you choose to look inward instead of seeking answers outside of yourself, you strengthen the connection with your true self. And that authenticity, according to Jung, is the key to a meaningful and fulfilling life. How do relationships change when you create distance? When you decide to take a step back, the dynamics of your relationships inevitably change. The people who were used to your constant presence may feel uncertain or even threatened. This can manifest in attempts to pull you back in criticisms of your decision, or even in apparent indifference. But as we mentioned before, these reactions are nothing more than projections of their own psyche. This is where your inner strength comes into play. You must remember that your decision to distance yourself is not an act of selfishness. It is an act of self-love. By prioritizing your well-being, you are taking a crucial step toward building healthier and more authentic relationships. Jung believed that the most meaningful relationships are those that inspire us to grow, not those that keep us in a state of complacency. Some people will adapt to this new balance and will choose to grow alongside you. These relationships, although they may go through an adjustment period, become stronger and more authentic over time. Others, however, may drift away entirely, and that is okay. As Jung said, separation is often the price of growth. Synchronicity. The universe responds to your authenticity. One of Jung's most fascinating ideas is the concept of synchronicity, the idea that seemingly unrelated events connect in meaningful ways when we are aligned with our true selves. When you step away from what no longer serves you, you create space for new opportunities and people to enter your life. This is not mere coincidence. It is the universe responding to your decision to prioritize your truth. Perhaps you have noticed that after letting go of a toxic relationship, people who genuinely support and inspire you begin to appear. Or maybe, by releasing a situation that was draining you, you suddenly gain the clarity to pursue a long-abandoned dream. These are not just strokes of luck. They are signs that you are on the right path. When you choose to take distance, the impact is not only seen in your external relationships, but also in your relationship with yourself. It is in these moments of separation that you begin to notice patterns that once went unnoticed. Perhaps you become aware of how you have allowed certain people or situations to consume your energy. Or maybe you confront the fear of being alone, a fear that, in reality, reflects a deeper disconnection from your own being. Distance offers you the gift of introspection. It's not just about distancing yourself from others, but about drawing closer to yourself. Carl Jung spoke about the significance of this process. How only by confronting our own shadows can we begin to truly understand who we are. The space that opens up when we let go allows new things to flourish, not only in your external world, but also within you. Taking a step back may initially bring discomfort, as if something is missing, but that feeling is merely a reflection of your growth. What once filled your life, even if only superficially, is no longer there, giving you the chance to fill that void with something more authentic. This is not a quick or easy process, but it is deeply transformative. The way others react to your decision to step away can serve as an indicator of how they have been engaging with you. Some people may be understanding, even supportive of this new path, while others may resist, trying to keep you within a dynamic that feels comfortable for them. Their reactions are not about you, but about themselves. Their resistance is a reflection of their own inability to adapt to your growth. The clarity that comes with distance helps you not only understand others better, but also rediscover your own boundaries. You begin to recognize which relationships uplift you and which ones drain you. This discernment is crucial for building a life aligned with your true purpose. It is not about judging others, but about making conscious choices regarding who you allow in your inner circle. The act of stepping away can also trigger a transformation in those who remain. Sometimes, your decision to set boundaries can inspire others to reflect on their own behaviors and patterns. Although this is not always the case, when it does happen, it is a sign that the change you initiated is not only benefiting you, but also those around you. However, the process of letting go can also bring moments of doubt. It is natural to question whether you made the right choice, especially when the void feels overwhelming or when others react intensely to your decision. But Jung reminds us that growth is never comfortable. It is in those moments of uncertainty that you must trust your intuition, the inner voice that led you to take this step in the first place. As you move forward on this path, you begin to notice subtle yet significant shifts in your life. People and opportunities that once seemed out of reach start to appear. Synchronicities, those seemingly coincidental moments, become more frequent. This is not mere chance. It is a sign that you are in alignment with your deepest essence. The universe responds to authenticity, opening doors that once seemed locked. That said, this process requires courage. Choosing authenticity over conformity is not always easy, especially in a world that constantly pressures you to fit in. But the reward is invaluable. A life that genuinely reflects who you are, filled with relationships and experiences that resonate with you on a profound level. On this journey toward authenticity, you begin to see relationships differently. People who once seemed indispensable now appear in a new light. You may realize that much of those connections were built on habits, expectations, or even a need for external validation. By stepping back, you gain clarity on whether these relationships truly added value to your life or merely occupied space that can now be filled with something more aligned with your true self. Some relationships survive this process, while others fade away. This may be painful at first, but over time, you come to understand that distance does not always mean loss. Sometimes, it means making room for something more genuine to grow. Jung believed that the most authentic relationships are not those maintained out of obligation or comfort, but those that inspire growth and evolution. You also begin to notice shifts in your energy. The emotional burdens you once carried by maintaining certain connections start to lift. That energy, previously trapped in conflicts, worries, or the constant urge to please others, is now freed for you to invest in things that truly matter. It's as if, by taking a step back, you reclaim parts of yourself that were lost in the process of trying to fit in. In this state of renewal, you realize that you don't need as many things or as many people as you once thought. Happiness becomes an ally, and you discover that true fulfillment doesn't come from accumulating, but from letting go. Carl Jung spoke about this as a return to one's essence, to what we truly are when we strip away the masks and distractions. The emptiness that at first might seem intimidating gradually transforms into a space of creativity. Now, you have the opportunity to build a life that reflects your values, dreams, and purpose. In this space, you can hear your intuition more clearly. The inner voice that was always there, but perhaps drowned out by the noise of external expectations. This process not only changes your relationship with yourself, but also deeply impacts the way you interact with the world. When you start living in alignment with your authentic self, the relationships you attract shift as well. They are no longer based on fear or dependency, but on mutual respect and a shared desire for growth. The right people begin to enter your life effortlessly, while those who no longer align with your path gradually fade away. Jung referred to this process as individuation, one of the greatest achievements of human life. It is not about perfection or reaching an ideal, but about becoming who you truly are. It's a journey without a final destination, because life itself is a continuous process of transformation. However, each step toward authenticity brings you closer to a sense of wholeness that no superficial connection can provide. This path also teaches you the art of surrender. By stepping back, you learn that you cannot force others to change or make them understand your journey. Every person is on their own path, and not everyone will be ready to walk alongside you, and that's okay. Your responsibility is not to pull others along, but to keep moving forward toward your truth. Transformation is not always immediately visible. You may go through periods of uncertainty, where answers are unclear, but over time, you begin to see the rewards of this process. Your life feels lighter, more aligned. The relationships that remain are deeper, and the opportunities that come your way resonate with your higher purpose. As you continue along this journey, you realize that the act of distancing yourself doesn't just transform your inner world. It reshapes how you perceive the outer world as well. You start seeing situations with greater clarity, free from the emotional distortions that once clouded your judgment. This doesn't mean you stop feeling. Rather, you gain the ability to observe your emotions without letting them control you. This level of awareness is precisely what Jung described as one of the pillars of individuation. Distance gives you the chance to redefine your priorities. You begin to ask yourself, what truly matters to me? Which relationships, activities, and goals align with my truth? These questions may seem simple, but their answers are profound and life-changing. Jung taught that an authentic life is not measured by external standards of success, but by the depth of our inner connection. When you start living from this place of authenticity, the rewards become evident. The right people arrive, and the experiences that genuinely enrich you appear almost as if by magic. However, this does not happen by chance. It is the result of your decision to let go of what no longer serves you, to create space for what truly matters. At this point, you begin to understand that distance is not necessarily an act of separation, but rather an act of connection with yourself. By prioritizing your well-being, you are setting a standard for your life, one that invites others to respect and value you for who you truly are. This is a subtle yet powerful shift, because you are no longer willing to compromise your inner peace just to please others. The relationships that remain after this process are the ones that withstand the test of time and change. They are connections that do not rely on constant physical or emotional proximity, but rather on a deep mutual respect. Jung once said that these relationships, built on authenticity, are the ones that truly enrich our lives. You do not need to struggle to maintain them because they flow naturally, without expectations or conditions. Of course, there will also be those who do not understand your decision. Some will accuse you of selfishness, interpreting your distance as rejection. But here is the truth. You are not obligated to explain your growth to those who are not ready to understand it. Everyone is on their own journey, and your responsibility is to yourself, not to the expectations of others. Distance also teaches you the power of patience. Not everything is resolved immediately, and not all answers arrive when you seek them. But as Jung said, the process of individuation is not a destination. It is a journey. Every step you take, no matter how small, brings you closer to your true self. And in this journey, even moments of uncertainty have a purpose. As you integrate this new way of living, you also realize that distance is not always permanent. Some relationships that seem lost along the way may reconnect later, but under new conditions. These rekindled connections are based on a deeper mutual understanding, on a respect that perhaps did not exist before. But if they do not return, that is also okay, because you no longer depend on them to feel whole. This process not only affects your personal relationships, but also impacts how you relate to your goals and dreams. When you decide to let go of what is not aligned with you, you begin to rediscover your passions, those things that truly inspire you and give you purpose. It is as if, by freeing yourself from unnecessary burdens, you regain the energy and clarity needed to pursue what you truly desire. That clarity, which arises from taking a step back, leads you to redefine the meaning of success in your life. Success is no longer about meeting external standards, but about living in alignment with your inner self. Carl Jung emphasized that the purpose of life is not to attain superficial happiness, but to find a fulfillment that arises from integrating all parts of yourself, including those you once repressed or ignored. The act of creating distance becomes a symbol of your commitment to this deeper purpose, a constant reminder that your energy is sacred and that you are unwilling to waste it on relationships, activities, or situations that do not contribute to your well-being. This decision to protect your energy is not an act of selfishness, but a form of self-love, a love that, paradoxically, allows you to be more generous with others. When you are aligned with yourself, relationships no longer feel like a burden. Instead of trying to fit in or seek validation, you realize that the most valuable connections are the ones that allow you to be your true self. These relationships do not require constant effort to be maintained because they flow naturally. They are authentic, based on acceptance and mutual respect. As you delve deeper into this path, you also begin to notice patterns in your life that previously went unnoticed. Perhaps you realize that you have been repeating the same mistakes in different relationships, or that certain toxic dynamics have persisted for years. Jung described this as part of the process of integration, making the unconscious conscious. By creating distance, you gain the opportunity to break these cycles and choose something different. The process of letting go is not always linear. There will be moments when nostalgia creeps in, making you yearn for what you left behind, especially if those people or situations played a significant role in your life. But that nostalgia is not a sign that you should go back. It is an opportunity to reflect on what you truly value and what you are willing to accept in the future. At this stage, you begin to notice how your perception of time changes. The things that once seemed urgent no longer hold the same weight. Now, you understand that personal growth cannot be rushed, that each stage has its own rhythm, and that even moments of apparent stagnation serve a purpose. Jung once said that the unconscious is always at work, even when we are not aware of it. So, even if you do not see immediate results, you can trust that the process is unfolding. This journey also leads you to a deeper understanding of synchronicity. When you live in alignment with yourself, you start to notice how things fall into place effortlessly, how the right people appear at the perfect time, how opportunities arise just when you need them most, and how the challenges you face seem designed to help you grow. This is not a coincidence. It is a sign that you are on the right path. Through this process, you discover that the greatest gift of stepping back is not what you lose, but what you gain, a deeper connection with yourself, one that is more aligned with your values, and an inner peace that cannot be replaced by anything external. You begin to realize that although the path may be challenging, every step is worth it. The transformation you experience is not just for you. It also impacts those around you. When you choose to live authentically, you inspire others to do the same. You do not need to say a word. Your example is enough. And while not everyone will follow your path, those who do will find in you a source of inspiration and strength. At the end of this process, you realize that taking distance is not about running away or abandoning anything. It is about reconnecting with what truly matters. It is an act of courage that allows you to redefine your life from a place of authenticity and fulfillment. The relationships that remain after this process are the ones that are meant to be, and the new connections that come into your life do so from a space of respect and harmony. You come to understand that by letting go of what no longer resonates with you, you are sending a powerful message to the universe. You are ready for something better. Carl Jung taught us that the journey toward oneself is the most significant adventure we can embark on. It is a path that not only transforms our own lives, but also has a profound impact on those around us. Your decision to live in alignment with yourself is not just a personal act. It is a beacon of light that guides others who are searching for the courage to do the same. Now, I invite you to reflect. What relationships, habits, or situations in your life no longer resonate with you? What would you gain by releasing what drains you and making space for what truly matters? These questions have the power to transform your reality if you allow yourself to listen to them with honesty. Embracing this journey of letting go is not just about leaving things behind. It is about stepping into a new version of yourself, one that is freer, wiser, and more in tune with your true essence. Every challenge you face, every moment of doubt, and every step forward is shaping you into the person you are meant to be. Trust that the universe is always working in your favor, guiding you toward the experiences and people that align with your highest good. The more you release what no longer serves you, the more you make space for growth, joy, and purpose. Remember, you are not losing anything. You are making room for something greater. You are not walking away. You are walking toward the life you truly deserve. Keep moving forward with courage, knowing that every decision you make from a place of authenticity brings you closer to the fulfillment and peace you seek. Your journey is yours to create. Believe in it, honor it, and most importantly, embrace it with an open heart.
Did you know that Carl Jung, one of the most profound thinkers of the modern era, wrote every night as if it were his last day on earth? He did not do this out of drama or fear, but because he had discovered something most of us never truly grasp. Living each day as if it were your last does not mean what you think it means. For years, I believed that phrase was just cheap motivation, the kind of advice that pushes you to spend all your savings on a trip or to quit your job in pursuit of impossible dreams. But I was completely wrong. The truth is much deeper and far more transformative. When you truly understand what it means to live each day as if it were your last, you don't drastically change your external life. You change something far more essential. You change the way you experience each moment you already have, and that shifts everything, absolutely everything. Today, we will uncover what truly happens in your mind, in your relationships, and in your perception of reality when you apply this wisdom in the right way. Here's the warning. Nothing you think you know about this idea is accurate. The first illusion we've swallowed is that living each day as your last means doing extraordinary things every single day, climbing mountains, traveling the world, confessing your love to someone, abandoning everything for your dreams. But look at your own experience. How many times have you tried to live that way? And how long did that intensity last? Exactly. A few days, maybe weeks, before reality struck and you had to return to paying bills, fulfilling responsibilities, and facing the consequences of impulsive choices. Jung understood this clearly. He was not in a position to abandon his calling to chase fleeting adventures. He had responsibilities, profound inner research, patience to guide, and truths to uncover about the psyche that would affect generations. Yet something in him shifted radically when he began to practice this philosophy. His writings reveal a transformation not connected to dramatic external changes, but to something far subtler and more powerful. The shift occurred in the quality of his attention. This is what truly happens when you live each day as if it were the last, and why it is more revolutionary than any external change you could imagine. Because most of us live like emotional sleepwalkers, disconnected from the present, lost in automatisms that keep us away from the life unfolding right in front of us. Imagine if today were truly your last day on Earth, not because of illness or tragedy, but simply as a mental exercise. What would change in the next 10 minutes of your life? I am not talking about grand gestures or dramatic choices. I mean right now, in this precise moment, as you are hearing these words. If you knew this was your last day, would it change the way you are paying attention to these ideas? Would it change the intensity with which you are processing this information? Of course it would. And here lies the first revelation. Most of the time, we live with scattered attention, divided between regrets of the past and anxieties about the future. Our minds operate on autopilot, processing information superficially, moving through life as if we were guaranteed another 50 years of existence. But when you activate definitive awareness, when you integrate the fact that this day, this hour, this moment could be the last, something fundamental shifts within your nervous system. Your attention sharpens like a laser. Your perception heightens. Colors appear more vivid, sounds clearer, sensations more intense. This is not mysticism. It is psychology and neurobiology. When the mind detects existential urgency, it deactivates the filters that normally dull perception in order to conserve energy. Suddenly, you are fully awake. Jung described this as awakening from the dream of ordinary life, and he did not use this practice occasionally, but as a daily discipline. Each night, before sleeping, he would review the day as if it had been his last, not to punish himself for mistakes or drown in regrets, but to extract every drop of meaning from the hours he had lived, to fully honor the gift of consciousness granted to him for those 24 hours. The result was a man who experienced profound gratitude for the simplest aspects of existence: the taste of food, the warmth of the sun on his skin, the richness of a conversation, even the melancholy beauty of watching the seasons change. But there is something deeper here, something beyond aesthetic appreciation of life. This is where most interpretations fall short. They believe living each day as if it were your last is about maximizing pleasure or minimizing regret. But the truth is more complex and, paradoxically, more liberating. When you truly internalize the temporality of existence, when you stop pretending you will live forever, something extraordinary happens in your relationship with suffering. Most of our psychological pain comes from resisting the temporal nature of life. We cling to moments already gone. We worry about futures that may never arrive. We fight against the natural flow of change and loss that defines the human experience. But when you live each day as if it were your last, you develop what Jung called amor fati, love of fate, love of what is, including the difficult, the painful, the uncomfortable dimensions of human existence. This is not passive resignation. It is something far more powerful. The deep understanding that every moment of consciousness, even moments of pain, are infinitely precious precisely because they are temporary. Think of it this way. If you had unlimited access to something, would you value it as much as if it were scarce and finite? Of course not. Value is directly tied to rarity, and your life, your awareness, your capacity to experience this specific moment are the rarest things you will ever have. This realization creates a radical shift in how you face everyday difficulties. That frustrating argument with your partner, that stressful project at work, that financial worry keeping you awake. When you experience them from the perspective of finitude, everything changes. Not because the problems vanish, but because your relationship with them is transformed. You see them as an integral part of the complete human experience you have the privilege of living, temporary ingredients in the complex recipe of your existence. And here is the most beautiful paradox. When you stop resisting the temporality of life, when you fully embrace the fact that all of this is fleeting, you experience a peace that is impossible to attain while fighting against the transient nature of being. But there is an even deeper dimension that few people ever explore, a dimension that concerns not only your internal experience, but also your relationships with others. Take a moment to reflect on your relationship with impermanence. How many times have you clung to something you knew was temporary? Here is what no one tells you. Living each day as if it were your last radically transforms the way you love the people in your life. Most of our relationships are poisoned by the illusion of permanence. We take for granted that the important people in our lives will always be available. We postpone meaningful conversations. We assume there will be unlimited time to resolve conflicts, to express gratitude, to deepen connections. But when you truly integrate finitude, not just your own, but also that of those you love, something beautiful and heartbreaking happens simultaneously. Every conversation with your mother becomes potentially the last. Every embrace with your child could be the final one. Every moment with your partner acquires an existential weight that is both terrifying and profoundly liberating. Jung himself lived this truth deeply when unexpected losses touched his life, transforming the way he related to his family, his friends, and even his critics. He didn't become morbid or melancholic. On the contrary, he became more present, more attentive, more authentic in every interaction. Because Carl Jung had come to a visceral understanding that each moment of genuine human connection is a temporary miracle that deserves full attention and gratitude. This generates immediate practical changes. You stop postponing difficult but necessary conversations. You express love and appreciation more often without waiting for special occasions. You forgive more quickly because you realize that clinging to resentment is a luxury you cannot afford when time is limited. Yet something deeper happens. When you truly embrace the temporality of your relationships, you paradoxically experience a purer love, less possessive, less dependent. Because when you know that nothing is permanent, you stop trying to control or own the people you love. You love them for who they are in this moment, without projecting expectations of who they should become. You appreciate them as temporary gifts in your life, not as permanent possessions. And that way of loving is infinitely more fulfilling both for you and for them. But here comes the most radical transformation of all, one that affects not only how you experience life and relationships, but how you make fundamental decisions about your existence. When you live each day as if it were the last, you develop a brutal clarity about what truly matters, and that clarity removes 90% of the doubts, worries, and dilemmas that normally consume your mental energy. Now, the crucial question: how can this be applied in real life without falling into destructive or unsustainable extremes? Jung suggested what could be seen as rituals of finitude, specific practices that integrated this awareness into daily routine, without disrupting one's roles as a thinker, father, or contributor to society. The first was what he described as the nightly review. Each evening before sleep, he dedicated a few minutes to reviewing the entire day as if it had been the last, not to criticize or regret, but to fully extract the value of every lived experience. He asked himself, if this had been my last day on earth, how would I evaluate the way I spent these precious hours? Which moments did I meet with full attention? Which did I live on autopilot? This practice produced two powerful effects. First, it increased his capacity to be present the following day, because he had cultivated the habit of consciously valuing each experience. Second, it gave him extraordinary clarity about how he wanted to invest his time and energy. The second ritual was the morning contemplation of mortality. Upon awakening, before beginning the day's activities, he spent a few moments remembering the fragile temporality of existence, not morbidly, but as recognition of the precious opportunity each new day represents. This immediately activated his awareness and helped him prioritize what truly mattered over the superficial urgencies that inevitably appear during the day. The third element was what could be called pauses of finitude scattered throughout the day. In random moments, while eating, walking through the garden, listening to a student, he reminded himself internally, "This moment is unique and unrepeatable. I will never again experience exactly this configuration of consciousness, sensations, and circumstances." This simple yet powerful practice transformed ordinary experiences into moments of deep appreciation and presence. But perhaps the most practical application was his approach to decision-making. When faced with complex dilemmas, professional, personal, or ethical, he asked, "If this were my last year of life, what decision would I make? What legacy do I want to leave? What version of myself do I want to be remembered for?" This perspective eliminated trivial considerations and provided a clear moral compass to navigate complicated situations. And here lies the most important point. None of these practices required dramatic changes in external life. He continued fulfilling his responsibilities, honoring his family, and contributing actively to the world. The transformation was internal, yet its effects were profoundly practical. The results of these practices are fascinating and entirely counterintuitive to what most would expect. Instead of becoming reckless or hedonistic, he became more disciplined and focused. Instead of abandoning long-term responsibilities, he embraced them with greater purpose and clarity. Instead of becoming anxious about mortality, he developed a profound serenity that impressed those around him. His reflections reveal a man who had attained something extraordinary: the ability to experience genuine gratitude for existence while maintaining complete equanimity about its end. He described this state as living as if you were to die tomorrow, but planning as if you were to live forever. An apparent contradiction that in truth represents the perfect synthesis between conscious presence and practical responsibility. How did this manifest in his daily experience? His writings give us clear clues. He reported an enhanced ability to find beauty in simple experiences that once went unnoticed. The complex taste of wine during dinner, the distinct texture of the breeze in different seasons, the unique expression on his child's face during a particular conversation. But even more importantly, he described a completely new way of experiencing time. Moments of true presence expanded subjectively, while hours spent in worry or distraction seemed to contract until they disappeared. This alteration of temporal perception generated a paradoxical sensation. Although he was more aware than ever of life's brevity, he experienced each day as richer, fuller, and more satisfying than before adopting these practices. He also reported significant changes in his relationships. His friends noticed he had become more present in conversations, less distracted by external worries, more generous with his attention and appreciation. But perhaps the most remarkable change was his relationship with fear. He had not eliminated fear. That would have been impossible and even counterproductive. But he had fundamentally transformed his relationship with uncertainty and potential loss. Instead of wasting energy trying to control uncertain outcomes, he learned to find peace in accepting the unpredictable nature of existence. Instead of resisting inevitable change, he developed the capacity to flow with life's natural transformations. His later reflections, written during the most turbulent periods of his personal and intellectual life, reveal a man at peace with himself and with his destiny, not out of resignation, but out of a profound understanding that he had lived each available day with the highest possible awareness. Consider how your life would unfold if you could maintain this perspective consistently. We have traveled a path that began with a misunderstood concept and ended with wisdom capable of fundamentally transforming the experience of being alive. The truth is that living each day as if it were the last has nothing to do with dramatic external changes, impulsive decisions, or irresponsible hedonism. It has to do with something far deeper and more powerful: the transformation of everyday consciousness. When you genuinely integrate the temporality of existence, when you stop pretending you will live forever, you encounter a form of presence and gratitude impossible to reach in any other way. Your relationships deepen because every shared moment takes on an existential value. Your decisions become clearer because you now hold an unmistakable moral compass. What would you choose if time were limited? Your ability to find beauty and meaning in ordinary life expands exponentially. But perhaps the most beautiful truth is that this philosophy does not require abandoning responsibilities or forsaking long-term plans. It requires only one thing: to live with the full awareness that every breath, every glance, every instant is both fragile and infinite. On the contrary, it allows you to embrace them with deeper purpose and with a mind less consumed by fear or anxiety. When you begin to truly realize that every single day is a gift that will never return, you naturally approach life with a different energy. The focus is no longer on fulfilling obligations, chasing after approval, or living under the weight of pressure. Instead, it becomes about embodying the fullest awareness possible and allowing authenticity to flow through you. Not because you are forced to, but because you fall in love with the very act of being alive, awake, and conscious within the vast mystery of existence. Each sunrise stops being just another morning. It turns into a sacred reminder that you have been given yet another chance to live, to feel, to transform. Carl Jung understood this truth not as an abstract idea, but as a living experience that shaped the way he moved through the world. His life was not free from suffering. He faced tragedies, deep internal conflicts, and the constant confrontation with his own unconscious shadows. And yet, he showed us something profound: that even in the presence of pain and uncertainty, it is possible to meet life with serenity, presence, and gratitude. Jung did not leave behind a legacy measured by wealth or possessions. What remains from him is not the authority he held in the academic world, but the living demonstration that a human being can learn to walk through existence with equanimity, with open eyes, and with a heart capable of embracing both the darkness and the light. This is why his vision continues to resonate today. It whispers to us that wholeness is not found by avoiding suffering, nor by clinging desperately to permanence. It is discovered when we stop running away from the fleeting nature of our lives and instead learn to walk alongside it, letting the awareness of impermanence make every moment shine with greater brilliance. Imagine for a moment how different your days would look if you fully accepted that nothing here lasts forever. Every conversation, every embrace, every breath would take on a new depth, because you would understand that it will never be repeated in the same way again. So the real question is simple, yet it cuts straight to the essence of our being. Are you ready to awaken from the dream of permanence? Are you willing to recognize yourself as the temporary, fragile, and infinitely precious being that you are? Because the moment you do, you begin to live differently. You stop waiting for some future event to justify your happiness, and you start discovering beauty in the ordinary rhythm of everyday life. A walk under the rain, a moment of silence with yourself, or even the most routine task suddenly becomes a doorway to presence. And when you allow this shift to happen, you realize that there is enough meaning hidden in a single day to fill an entire lifetime. The extraordinary is not out there in some distant future. It is right here, in this very moment, if you have the courage to truly see it. To live this way is not to escape suffering or deny the challenges of being human, but to integrate them into the flow of existence, transforming them into opportunities for growth and deeper awareness. So I invite you to reflect on this. When in your life did you feel, perhaps with startling clarity, the fragile yet sacred nature of existence? Was it in a moment of loss, in an encounter with beauty, or in the stillness of solitude? And how did that realization change the way you understood what really matters? Share that memory, because in speaking about it, you not only honor your own awakening, but also offer light to others who are searching for meaning in their own journey.